And we're live, right? We're live. We're streaming.
Live.
Okay.
So I'd like to.
You'd think that we'd got better at it now, wouldn't you? Because we do this all the time and then immediately go into startled rabbit. So I will hand over to you to do the intros.
Well, thank you. I do look like a startled rabbit on many occasions. But yeah, I mean, so today we're gonna talk about the art of communicating through impactful conversations. And the good news is that the words are very big on my screen here, so I can actually read them. Because I put them in a notepad and I was like, couldn't actually read it at all. But so we've got some great panelists. Would you guys like to kind of briefly introduce yourselves? I think probably Kim first, ladies first, right?
Absolutely.
Bless you. So yes, I'm Kim Adele. I work with Nat all of the time. I'm usually the reason why he says work is hard. So I'm not sure if that is a compliment or not. And I guess I now specialise in helping people communicate with more impact, particularly since having become a face whisperer, which freaks the living daylights out of people and immediately has them going, what's my face doing? So I promise not to read any faces today.
Super. So Brian?
Yeah. Oh man, this topic is so right in my my wheelhouse. And my sweet spot, because impact is like, for me, what everything is everything in life is all about. Whether it's impact on just, love, or impact on the soft side, the soft skills, the soft outcomes, or the hard outcomes. Impact can come in so many different flavors. And what I do is work with people, with executives, entrepreneurs, and coaches to help them to get to their desired impact. And so, but like I said, I just love this topic because when you see somebody get to that point to where they actually see that, and you see their face and they're like, oh my God, I don't know if we can swear on here. Oh my God, there's an impact that, and you see them achieve that, and they're like, I did it. And then they go, wow, let's get to the next level. It's just so neat. And so that's just where I come from. So thank you for having me here.
Pleasure. And thanks, Stephen, for coming as well. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Nathan. Hi, guys. Yeah, this subject is massive as well for me. It really is, because how to shape the energy of our work, and certainly the different exponential levels of growth, of learning, of education, as we sharpen our skills towards an impact in the world, our personal life, whatever, is absolutely key. This is a central thing that I work with. My life, I've had a lot of challenges. I've had a lot of success in the media. I'm best-selling author. There's a film being made of my life. This is my personal brand. But centrally, we build national, global brands, and I'm a exclusive mastery coach as well, to help people overcome them immense adversities and find their way back to themselves, so they can meteorically step into what they need to step into, I suppose, is a good way to say it.
I love it.
Thank you all for coming along. I think it's super. And I've just got 4 questions. We'll see if we can make it to the 4, and then we can kind of have a chat afterwards. And if we get any sort of questions, obviously we can answer if we get time at the end. So I think I'm going to ask Kim this one first. Don't look like a scared rabbit. It'll be okay. That's me in the morning when I see Kim. So, how can you use emotional intelligence in communicating to make the world a better place?
Oh, great question. And it's something I've really worked on a lot, having led large teams and now coaching people on how to lead large teams. Really working with people's emotions is so key. And in the last year, as you know, I did the face whisperer stuff, which helped you to read people's micro expressions, because our emotions respond 24 times faster than our thinking brain. So at the point that we think, don't show somebody that I'm sad, I'm happy, I'm upset, I'm fearful, it's already out there for the world to see. And you don't do that to be able to call somebody out on it, but to be able to ask better questions. Because I think as human beings, we all want to be listened to, we want to be understood, and we want to be respected. And that doesn't mean to say we can't disagree, but you disagree, you don't disrespect. And I guess my view in life is to always seek to understand the other person's point of view. And, you know, I love the fact that we live in a world of polarity. For every left, there's a right. For every up, there's a down. And once you realise that just because I'm right doesn't make you wrong, and just because you're right doesn't make me wrong, we could just be viewing things from a different standpoint. And in being open-minded to that, in seeking to understand the other person's viewpoint, we can actually learn something. And that's where true growth comes from. I think, you know, if we can do more of that to be able to help people that might have before felt that they had a conflict, suddenly realize that actually they're violently agreeing, they're just using different words.
Super, thank you. So Brian, how can you use emotional intelligence in communicating to make the world a better place?
Wow, Kim, that was so well said, and I love that about the micro emotions. I hadn't heard that before. You know, what comes up for me is how we are being, and what we emit around us, and being present for ourselves and for others. And what I see in others is how we're telling our story, and the emotional intelligence around that in understanding that our story is resonating at different levels, and how we use our words and how we're being with others is that. And so, you know, there's a lot of different ways that you can come at that, but one of them is the mindset that you're taking on and how you're showing up. And one of the thing that can shift, and I really think that this is just such a it can be a really powerful thing when you start to think about this in terms of just making little shifts, little tiny shifts. Like you were saying, Kim, about the micro shifts, which I love, but kind of now thinking about that in terms of like, how do I take on, because everybody has this Kilimanjaro, this massive mountain of something that they want to do in their life. And then they're like, well, I'll never get there. That's not something that I'm going to go do. And then their emotional intelligence gets them in the way, or gets in the way of them getting there. And so then they're defeated or deflated before they ever get to that point. So now how do we do that? Well, we just do these little micro shifts, these little things, and these little things can take you to where you're going, which is, I think, you know, going back to what a little bit of what Kim was saying, and, you know, just to kind of back that up a little bit, think about it in terms of a compass. I was doing some research, and I learned that a compass on a ship, on one of those big carriers right now, like the old compasses, they still have them. It's like a little magnet, the magnet compass, the old one in the bubble. It's still on carriers. They still have that, and it still has to be recalibrated once a year, and to be recalibrated once a year because it's off by 1 degree every year. So if you don't recalibrate it, the ship will be off 277 miles if they pay attention to it after it's not recalibrated. So that's a lot to be off. Now think about not just individuals, but companies that by not taking these little shifts, individuals, companies, however you want to see that, can make a big difference. So start by making these little shifts in just seeing and being present around whatever it is that you're looking at, this big Kilimanjaro, this big mountain to climb. Look at what's in front of you. Look at these little Lego blocks. Do that in front of you, and then you're going to get there.
Super. I like that. I like that analogy of the ship. I think it's wonderful. So over to you, Stephen. How can you use emotional intelligence in communicating to make the world a better place?
I think it's pivotal. It really is absolutely pivotal. I'm sure, I'm sure the guys would agree. I loved what Kim said about asking better questions. It's certainly about that, to get better answers. I love what you said, Brian, as well, about the ship just being off just that fraction. I mean, I've always used an analogy, when I've been coaching companies or exclusively, that look, usually success, for someone who's kind of towards there anyway, is millimeters off. It's really like this safe combination, that 1 to the right, 4 to the right, 6 to the left, 7 to the right, 10 to the, it really is, and if it's not precisely forged in the right way, bespokely forged in every case, for what I see personally with people, both individually and for groups, companies, and so forth, is it doesn't work, and they think, oh, we're putting all this investment in, we're burning the midnight oil, we're doing all this innovation, we have a wonderful product, we have skilled staff, why isn't it working? This is why I say to them why it's not working, because it really, and emotions obviously are pivotal to this, because they're like a raging river sometimes, but they need to be managed. So when you inject this into something that needs to be pragmatic, of course, it's another element that misleads, right? So I loved what you said, Brian, about doing them little micro changes, because in many instances, it really is that. It takes that. The Japanese have a wonderful system. It's kind of reprogramming and not setting yourself up with these massive goals. So the brain thinks, oh my God, the critical parent comes in then and says, oh, you'll never do it. But it's not that, it's about reverse engineering that and setting yourself the goals that you keep winning emotionally. Because, as I'm sure we all know, life really is not in the things happen or circumstances come in at strange times. It's our responses. It's always the response to it, and our emotions are absolutely critical there. So having a good internal engineering around that, and understanding that it really is communication going outwards. So I think it's a good way to look at it. It's very important indeed.
Super. Yeah, Kim talks a lot about how we react, and we don't have to react, do we? I mean, that's the thing. We've all written that email that we didn't want to send. We've all sent it, and we've all felt that pain in our chest and gone, oh, I really shouldn't have sent that. And actually, great policy, right? The email, send it to yourself. Don't put the address in, right? I mean, it's painful at times. I think we've all done it. Everyone's done it. If anyone sends email, they've all written that awful email that it's just the way it is, isn't it, really? But yeah, I mean, I have got another good question, actually. So Kim, how can you have a more impactful conversation?
Great questions. So I think for me, it's about being really, really present. And I guess one of the things that I learned in corporate life is that actually it's the difference between impact and intent. So what tends to happen is we talk to people, and particularly if you have to give anybody constructive feedback, they'll immediately defend their intention because they weren't intending to get it wrong. They weren't intending to mess up. And therefore you end up in this ridiculous conversation where they're telling you what they were trying to do and you're telling them what they actually did. And you end up with that kind of like disconnect. And so instead, I kind of looked at, well, is there a different way? Can you change the way we communicate? And it's interesting, Brian, you were saying earlier about, we have our Kilimanjaro. We all have that thing that we are fearful that we're not going to be able to achieve. And yet, if I said to any of you here today that in the morning when you wake up, you're going to have to learn how to walk or talk or run or jump or skip, you'd be overwhelmed. We'd all be overwhelmed. And yet the reality is, at our most vulnerable, we learned it. So it kind of makes you think, okay, what is so different about us at that point that we could learn from today. And that's probably been one of my biggest lessons, is since becoming a mum, really paying attention to my little one and her friends. And you kind of look at it and go, there's three things that are different about us when we're so little. The first one is we just want to be like everybody else. So you can run and jump and walk and talk and skip. So I want to be like that because I just want to be like you. And the second one is I might be able to say no, but I can't really mean it. I mean, even toddler tantrums run out of steam eventually, even if you don't think they're going to. But the third one, and for me, this has probably been the biggest point of impact, has been that if you look at any child that is learning to walk, I pretty much guarantee that there is at least one, if not many people, stood around them going, come on, sweetheart, you're so close, you can do this. We give them our belief. And actually, that is one of the biggest and most impactful things that we can do. And that's what I now teach leaders to do, which is overtly share your belief with your people. Believe in them. Let them know that you know that they can do this. And get them to borrow your belief until they find their own. And you know, I've done that in organisations, and you see the point at which actually they start to believe it for themselves. So they borrow yours to start off with, but actually you can have such an impact by being overt. Every time you give somebody an opportunity, you are inadvertently saying, I believe in you. Because the other thing that's true about all human beings is we don't want to be foolish. We don't want to get it wrong. So if I ask one of you guys to do it, it's because I believe that you can and you're going to do an amazing job. But I might not tell you that. So it's like, I think for me, that's the most impactful thing I've learned, which is tell people that you believe in them. Say, you know, I'm asking you to do this because I believe you're going to be brilliant. And you're going to share such amazing insights that why would I not ask you to get involved?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Michael Tobin says that in his book. I mean, he hired someone and he said, "Oh, well, you're going to do a mergers and acquisition. You're going to take the company IPO." And he was like, "Well, I've never done that before." But actually, the guy did the job because he had the right basic skills in place to, like, you know, go for it and get all the details done and all that kind of good stuff. So I can see, Stephen, on your face there, you love to tell me how can you have a more impactful conversation?
I think it's important for all of us to understand first what I've learned on, you know, everything I've kind of done, wherever I've done it, all the wonderful people I've been privileged to meet, personal or business, is that I've learned about human beings that we all have a message. We all have a message, and we want to relay that to the world. You know, what we do is we pick different mediums, whether it's singing, dancing, business, building skyscrapers to the sky, whatever. It really doesn't matter. It's our expression to the world, right? And that is really one of the main purposes that we're here for. It's very powerful. So, you know, within that really, you know, is the impact. So, you know, I've always kind of known this intrinsically, and it's about uncoding that, finding that, nurturing that really for people. But it's a funny journey, you know, really, when you're doing it professionally, because sometimes, you know, I've certainly found I have to drag kicking and screaming people towards their own best version of themselves, or, you know, interrupt unhealthy thinking that's really not serving them, that is causing a lot of heavy lifting and unnecessary pain that, you know, really can be done without, right? So it's a funny thing. So that to me is an impactful conversation as well, because it's righting a wrong and it's improving things really quickly. So yeah, I would say that it's quite a question.
Right. So you're talking about basically helping people to shut off their self-talk, the negative self-talk, and flip it to something else. Is that what you're saying?
It's a massive area. It really is, you know, and for those of us who know that we have to wrestle with these kind of things to help people, you know. And the other thing I would say is, look, you know, this is why a king has a court of advisors, because he's wise enough to know that one person can't always be right. You know, you need other people to come in with a side view. I mean, I even seek constructive criticism. I'll go and seek it and say, hey, what do you think of this? Because, you know, we must be open to learn. And this is a really important point, Roy. You know, so I'll say it is that another thing I've certainly learned is when you come up the levels of life, as in business, this is one of the really important things that certainly catches out a lot of people I see. Kind of the law of the lid kind of a thing. If we're talking, you know, leadership is, you know, they get to a certain plateau, but one of the main things is they're not open to learn. There's something strange that happens where them needed messages or, you know, support systems or ways to integrate what they need kind of, you know, don't work. It's not. It's just this is the time where you need to expedite the learning, and you need to get over these humps in the road, breaking points, I call it, to the next level, if that makes sense. But it's very apparent, you know, I see many instances of this.
Thank you. That's fantastic. So over to you, Brian. How can you have a more impactful conversation? Hold on, got to switch your. Let me just switch your.
I'm off. I'm off.
Cool.
Human error right there. There's so much good stuff here. It's all so juicy and good, and I'm a big believer that of all of this, and one of the things that I can contribute here is that when I was writing my second book, Shareology, which is all about how humans share with each other, and why, what, how, and when. What drives them psychologically to share, and I was after that. I was like almost fixated on it. Which is a sickness. Maybe we could take that into a whole different direction. But anyway, therapist time. Anyway, I was doing the research, and I interviewed over 250 people of all walks of life. CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, CMOs, sociologists, like you name it, every kind of person I could get my hands on, data scientists, and after just this one question of why do people share with each other? What is it? You know, what is it that will make an impact basically between two people, and why? Why do they want that? Online, offline, in every capacity. And then I took all of the data and I had every interview transcribed, and then I threw it into one of those word cloud generators. And the biggest word that popped up in the word cloud generator in the center was connection. And I was like, that's so fascinating that every human on earth, 99.9% wants connection with each other. That's why we all share. Kind of pointing back to what Kim and Stephen just said in as well, that we want that. And so I dug a little deeper, because we do all want connection and we do all want to make an impact on each other, but we do it all with different flavors, because we're each unique in our own way, and we impact each other in our own way, and we receive it in our own way. So when you're asking someone to do something, it's not fair to ask someone to share something when they might be not of a different, you know, they're of a different mindset. And so then we put a little bit of a research report together with New York Times, and we came up with a way that impact is different for different people. So we came up with different archetypes of, like, the altruist, the early adopter, the connector, the careerist, the boomerang, and the selective. So that when you ask somebody who is, let's say, a selective, someone who would rather not share on social media, or they'd rather just share in one-to-one conversations, basically privately. They don't want to be public with anything. They'd rather just share in a private situation. You're now impacting them in a whole new way, right? Or it's just like we're the four of us right here. So what I'm getting at is that be really careful about who you're talking to and how you're impacting them, because each of us has a unique way about how we need to be and who we're being with, and how we can each impact each other. The four of us don't mind being on camera, but not all people want to do that. So there's different ways that we can all impact others in different ways. So that's kind of what I wanted to add to the conversation.
Fantastic. That's very interesting. I like the way that you did all your market research and put all that took all the words and put them in the word cloud. I like that a lot. I love that approach. Surveys, I'm a bit geeky like that, really. I'm not going to lie. So, Kim, how can you have a more impactful conversation? You need to unmute yourself, dear.
I will, my love. So I think for me, it's about being really present, and seeking to understand the other person is going to be how you have the most impact. I think one of the skills that we've sadly lost the art of is genuinely listening. And by that, I mean listening to understand, not to interject. So too often we can listen only long enough to be able to leap in with our point, to try and demonstrate that we were listening really, or that we've got an opinion. And actually, we miss the chance to learn something really insightful and really valuable. So I try really hard now to make sure that when I'm in a conversation with people, I am being really, really present, and I'm listening to try and understand their point of view, what's important to them, what are they trying to get out of it, and how can I use it as an opportunity to learn more? Because, I say this all the time. My nan used to say every day is a school day, and God bless her, she was right. We learn something every day. And I think, Stephen, you were so insightful when you were talking about the fact that unfortunately something switches off in leaders, and as they get higher up, they suddenly stop learning. And I wonder if almost that fear of not having the answers takes over. And actually, we don't need to know all of the answers. We need to have the confidence to ask other people to have those answers. I think it was Lao Tzu that said that the wise man is the one that knows what he does not know. And I think, if we can get ourselves into that place of confidence where it's like, I don't know, and I'm willing to ask you, because we are going to be stronger together. I think that's how we can have more impact.
Thank you. So I've got another question here. How can you use impactful conversations to help people get through challenging times? I think it's probably want to start with you on that one, Stephen, because you sort of started a bit about that earlier.
I think there are different elements here, and it depends where a person is or a problem is, and how it needs to be treated, and what you're trying to pivot from and where you need to go. The ending in mind is always very, very important to get first, and we can see what we need to do to get there. Certainly for human beings, what Kim said is seeking to understand first before being understood is massive, because we do. What Kim said there is so important. The mind has a configured way of jumping the fences, before we even get to them. We need to be aware of that, because the essence of it is we're missing them jewels that we need to get, the information that enables us to ask the right questions, which we talked about earlier, in a situation like this. And adversity is troubled waters. So, it needs a guiding hand, and usually a firm but very supportive hand as well. And like I said, you really need to know where the horizon is, so you have a direction and a goal, and a star to follow, really. So everyone can see that. This is important, because the journey is the journey, and there are twists and turns, but them elements are quite important, I would say, in a simple way.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So, Brian, how can you use impactful conversations to help people get through challenging times?
Run. No, I'm kidding. The word that Stephen, that you just said that really resonated with me the loudest, that I love the most, is simple. And I really think that's the way to go. The more complex and challenging times, the harder you're making it on yourself. And that's what we tend to do. We make things complex, and it really makes things daunting. And simplify everything around you. Our heads are filing cabinets, and they can reach max capacity. And when you get to that point where it's in max capacity, you've got to start to pull files out until it's down to the files that you need. And at that point, can you only take care of yourself and others? And the way to do that is through empathy. Empathy is the key to having that with others in difficult times. The way through empathy is listening, but you can't listen and you can't have empathy if you're not in that state of mind where you're having and pulled out those files for yourself. You can't have empathy for others if you haven't taken care of yourself. And whether you're a coach, a leader, an executive, whoever, wherever, whatever, if you are not in the right state of mind and you're not taking care of yourself, it's not going to work. For you to step up and be there for others. So take care of yourself, pull those folders out, simplify before you go have empathy for others and listen to them. Deep listen, not listen, deep listening. And then the last thing I'll say is imperfection. We're in a state of devastation, or you're in a state of craziness going on. Shit's happening. So it's not perfect. It's far from it. Celebrate the imperfection of what's happening, and know that that's just is what it is. So let's celebrate it. Let's know that when things are going wrong, that's okay, and we're going to be okay. And when I unmute myself incorrectly, that's going to work out just fine, and we're all going to be okay. Just that small little piece just there is not going to make the whole world go off its head. So celebrate simplicity, celebrate empathy, and celebrate imperfection. If you can get those three things down, you're going to be just fine, and you're going to be a great leader. You're going to get through this, and those challenging times are going to raise up, and you're going to be wonderful.
Someone thinks it's great advice. I'm not sure who that is, but I think we all do, to be fair. Kim talks a lot about being kind to yourself, and I think that's just so important, really. It's just massive. So over to you, Kim. How can you use impactful conversations to help people get through challenging times?
It's already such great advice from Brian and Stephen, and I think it's so true. I think sometimes the challenge is the label that we're using, because dependent on the label we use will depend on how we view it. And very often what we do is, instead of looking at what's actually happening, we respond to what we're making it mean. So what we've got to be able to do is take a step back from that. So what's actually happening is I didn't unmute myself when I was supposed to. What I've made that mean is that I'm hopeless at technology. People are going to think that I don't know how to be able to have this conversation. That's not true. The reality is I forgot to unmute myself, and do you know what? The world survived. So I think if we can help people by looking at, hold on, what's actually happening? What have you made it mean? How do we bring that back? I use this example all the time, but right now we've been through a year of various lockdowns. And you could say I'm stuck at home, or you could say I'm safe at home. It's only one word difference, but the impact it's going to have on how you show up in the world, how you feel, your psychology is huge. So I think for me, one of the things that I try and help people with is understanding that label and asking whether or not it's serving them. So is there a different way that you could look at it? Could you view it in a different way? And one of the, I can't remember who it is that said it, but the word that we should take out of the vocabulary is problem, because by definition it's something that's hard and difficult to overcome. And if instead we can view everything as an opportunity, it's just some of them might be more pleasant than others, then we can actually look at those and say, okay, how am I going to live up to the opportunity that's in front of me, and what am I going to learn from it?
Thank you. Thank you. So, Stephen, do you have any advice for coaches that would make their work easier?
I think there's been some wonderful, wonderful stuff on here already. From everyone, from all the guys, there's been some really, really good stuff. Especially that one. It's a very, very crucial one. Is that look? If you're not centered in the right place yourself, then it's a no-brainer that you're not. The output is not going to be correct more often than not. So it is. We start there. We start there. It's a very professional thing, and I've always said that for coaches, really what I find is, you can pretty much only take people as deep as you've been before, really yourself is the first thing, in many ways, right? There are different styles and different ways to coaching. This is why there are so many coaches in so many different areas, because it's so specialized and there are so many issues. So it's a broad question. But I think the best thing I've heard on it tonight is what Brian said, where it really begins at home, right? And it's about the preparation. The devil is always in the detail and the focus, and having the horizon, as I said. Goals that are attainable, and them little victories sometimes with people are very important on the way to a longer goal.
Very much so. So over to you, Brian. Do you have any advice for coaches that would make their work easier?
Yeah, I'm not muted again, am I?
No. Everyone. I was frozen yesterday for an hour, so really, I wouldn't worry.
There's so many that it's the best thing that I think that I can say is that I think that when you first show up, it's really good to first establish, how do you want me to coach you? 0 through 10. Do you want me to coach you at a level 1 as your mom, a level 5 as your friend, or a level 10 where I'm going to push you a little bit and I'm going to coach you a little and challenge you, and we're going to get you somewhere? Where do you want me to be with you along this journey? And that's where I think we need to set the stage, because we fall in and out of relationship with our clients, and it's not to push them beyond their means. It's not to send them into tears. It's not to create dis-ease. It's to get them to where they want to go and be along the journey with them. And the minute we stop doing that, then we've become their friend or their family member. And I think that it's important that a coach maintains that relationship with them, that really gets to the heart of what's going to move that for them. And so establish that right up front. And if you haven't established that, go back and establish that now. It's one of the most critical things that you can do before you move forward at any point of the relationship. And so I'll leave it at that. I think that's one of the things I think needs to happen is how are we going to be in this relationship together?
Super. Thank you, Brian. I can understand that. I've had many coaches over the years, and so I can understand that very much so. So Kim, over to you. What advice have you got for coaches to enable them to do a better job?
I mean, Brian and Stephen, you've already shared such great advice, and I think it's about being present in the moment and being really honest, so that people know, how it is what you're expecting of them and what they're expecting of you, and therefore you can keep pulling yourself back to that and checking in, making sure that it's landing in the way that you want. And I often talk to my clients about, being a critical best friend, the person who's going to let them know their bum looks big in it before they've strutted around town thinking they look amazing, not actually when they've come back from the evening, because you want to be there to help them, to help, to kind of support them to be their best. But I liked Stephen's advice as well, which was, make sure that you are recognizing how far you've come. The reason that there is various camps on going up Mount Everest is because you need to be able to acknowledge how far you've come, as well as look ahead at how much further you've got to go. And I think it's important that we do that as coaches as much as we do it for our people that we're coaching, because if you don't, if you're not able to kind of have a look at how far you've come on the journey and keep yourself clean, because we can spend a lot of time, people tell us real challenges, real problems that they've got, and obviously you're there with them, helping them. You've got to be able to also take back that time to make sure that you aren't absorbing what's happening to them, and that you're helping them and you're keeping yourself clean so that you are better able to help the next person. And I think sometimes we miss the opportunity to do that as coaches. And I think making sure that you've got your right support mechanism, you've got the person that, I'm a big advocate. I'm a coach, but I've got coaches myself because I can't see my own blind spots. I'm blind to them for a reason. So actually having somebody who can shine a light on those for me and help me be the best that I can be to be better able to support my clients is so crucial. So I guess for me, I always advocate making sure you've got the right support network around you as a coach, as much as you're providing that support network for the people you're supporting.
Can I just jump in and highlight what you just said? That's such a great point around blind spots, because that's blind spots are, coaches need coaches.
Yeah,
we don't. Everyone has blind spots. I don't care who you are on this planet. Everyone has blind spots, and that was such an excellent point on why we're here. We're here to help everyone see that in themselves. So I just wanted to jump out and just lift that part up of what you just said, because that was such a great point. We need to just continue to help them see that in themselves, right? Yeah.
Nice point. So we've got a question here from someone on LinkedIn. Sorry, it covers you guys up a little bit. Keen to understand our thoughts, your thoughts actually, on the differences between a coach and a mentor. I'm coaching members of my team, but my CEO is asking me to identify a mentor to help me. What should I be looking for? So I don't know who would like to answer that first.
I have a thought on it. I'll just go first, and I'd love to hear what you guys think. A coach is sitting alongside you; they're moving with you, and they're walking with you. So they don't necessarily have had to have gone through what you're going through. They may not be a CEO at a company that has been at that point in their life that has done what you're doing right now, because they're coaching you through, again, what Kim just said, your blind spots. So that isn't necessary for them to have gone through that themselves, because they're using tools to walk you through that. Where a mentor is different. A mentor has made it to the mountaintop. A mentor has been there, done that, and they're throwing a rope down to you and pulling you up. And a mentor can actually help you see what's ahead because they've been there before, and they're gonna pull you up and say, now what's next is this for you, and now what's next is this for you. And there's a big difference between the two.
Yeah, I think Stephen and I had a long conversation about this, didn't we, on a podcast? Was it a couple of years ago, I think?
A couple of years ago, IOD, yeah.
Yeah, but then you became famous, Stephen. You haven't talked to me since.
Please. Whatever you think, that's what I say, right? But
I'm kidding.
Would you like I think, yeah, I'm very close to what you think, Brian. And for me, a coach, really, I think coaches work best when, they have to be really immersed and they walk with you and they get you across the river to the other side. And I think they're more impactful. We're talking about impactful. They're more impactful. They're more kind of intense, where it's about expediting a certain time or a period or a point or a transition in life, career, whatever. Mentors they're more long term, and yeah, they're usually someone who's, already over the other side of the river and says, hey, how you cross this river is, and then the next river is going to be like this. And, we're going to talk to that we're going to talk about that when we get to it. But first, go this way, kind of a thing. It's more long term as well, right? So that's what I would say.
Thank you both. And Kim, what do you think? How can this person find a mentor, identify one?
Yeah, so I agree with what Brian and Stephen have said. I think, for me, a coach is somebody who's there to help you get your best answer, and they don't have to have been in that exact same situation themselves. It's about the questions that they ask to help you unlock your true answer. Whereas a mentor usually has been there and done it. And in those moments where, we'll all have had it, where you're coaching somebody, they just don't know the answer, and they just look at you like, could you just tell me, please? Because I just don't know. Stop asking me silly questions and tell me what you do. That's when a mentor can be really helpful, that can go, do you know what? I've been in your shoes. I've done it this way. This might be able to help. And they can almost show you the way rather than be on your side as you find your way through. So I guess for the person who's, looking for a mentor, it's identifying somebody who has been in your shoes, somebody who's led a team like yours, in an organization like yours, somebody that you respect, somebody that you admire, and that you think, actually, I would like to achieve things in a similar way. For me, one of the things to be very mindful of when you're thinking about a mentor is it's got to be a good value fit for you. If you're somebody who, for example, is quite an introvert, you don't probably want to pick a really extroverted mentor, because the likelihood of you being able to implement their advice comfortably is going to be very hard, because they're going, oh my God, I don't want to do that, what they're doing. Thanks very much, that might have worked for them. So I think it's trying to find somebody that is somebody that you admire, you respect, and that you actually believe that you could emulate and learn from, is probably the most crucial in finding the right mentor.
That's interesting. Yeah, I was talking to Stephen about coaching. It got to be about 2 years, maybe 3 years ago. We had a good long conversation about coaching, and he said that these breakthroughs, they kind of come in levels, right? And at that point I was like, yeah, I don't know what he's talking about, but I'll agree with him, and maybe I might find out what on earth he's talking about one day. And since working with you, Kim, since what's that, Stephen?
Sounds good, huh, at the time. Yeah,
well, we had
a conversation about this, didn't we? Earlier?
The pain of it was like, seriously, I've been working with Kim since last year. When I interviewed her on imposter syndrome, and I don't have imposter syndrome, right? But like, Kim did have imposter syndrome, and we've kind of been sort of coaching each other. But like, my brain has just exploded like almost every day since like last October. And when you say levels, I didn't realize how much pain was kind of involved with these levels, to be fair.
Yeah, we said, didn't I say, what did I say to you after? And I said, Nathaniel, you do realize that these levels, go on so infinitely that we could never finish them in a lifetime, right?
Yeah. I share this sentiment.
So very humbly true.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. You guys are brilliant. What an interesting conversation that is. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about?
Very open.
All right, go on. If there are any questions from the audience, we're here to kind of answer. But I think, Brian, have you got a couple of tips for people that want to be better at their communication?
Better at communication. Give me a scenario, or give me like within.
I'd say more empathetic communication. Yeah, because I know you're big into empathy, as we all are. So
sure.
What do you think?
I'll take it into empathy, and I'll take it into vulnerability. Actually, I'd love to know, Nat, your thoughts too. We're gonna come back around to you too, and Stephen
right.
and Stephen and Kim too. But I think vulnerability, it's not just this buzzword that comes from TED talkers and people that are putting it up on books and saying this is the way forward. I think it actually really is important, and there's a level of vulnerability at which we're all willing to go, and the work that you put into how deep and where you're able to be vulnerable with your people, your audience, your clients, especially. Maybe I'll even take it to a coaching level. If you can get vulnerable with your clients, they're going to be more vulnerable with you, and it's going to deepen the relationship. And I've experienced that so many times. I think vulnerability, when you talk about impact, there's no greater impact than being vulnerable. Now, we were talking before we got on this whole talk about light and dark, about the light side and the dark side. And I see a lot of people using vulnerability as a way to light themselves, or to use it as I see a lot of, all right, I'll call it out. I see a lot of influencers, I say in air quotes, to use vulnerability as a game changer for them. And you can tell, we can all tell when vulnerability is real, and it states a place of where you're coming from, and you feel it, and you're like, wow, this really moved me. So, there's a time and a place for it, but when you feel it and it really is going to help the other person or people, and it's in a servant mindset for other people, that's when it's a tool for others. And so I don't know, I'd love to hear what you all think.
I agree. I mean, we both know Tim McDonald, and what a lovely guy he is. Yeah. And showing how vulnerable he is. Guy's got cancer, but his half glass full attitude is absolutely inspiring. And, I think for me, I try and communicate positively. I really do, but I'm human like everybody else. Right. And, we're all human. We need to, sometimes have a rant. I mean, I'm not saying go and have a rant on LinkedIn and go crazy, right? But what I'm saying is sometimes we need to be human and actually revert back to, well, this is really bothering me, and actually that's what it is. And one of my friends, like, she's been complaining for years about her life and all these things. And I got fed up the other week, and I actually just said, look, you're continually complaining. You need to change this. This is an issue. And the more you complain about it, the more you're going to continue complaining. And then I had one of my other friends basically give me abuse, and I blocked him. I just decided that actually I don't want any toxic opinions. I'm not interested. So, that was my way of handling it, really. But it's a reflection. That's the thing, is that Kim talks a lot about this, and how people, when they say something to you, they're really talking about themselves a lot of the time. And that's a very interesting thing to sort of ponder, really.
We do
Yeah.
forget. We do forget. We have the block button. It's there for
we
us.
do.
Yeah.
It's a
I mean,
wonderful button.
Oh,
Go ahead.
No, I felt compelled to come in there about the vulnerability, because I feel it's such an important thing as well. I mean, it gets a real bad rap, and I mean, I'm not sure why, but back in the old days, vulnerability had actually come from strength. It was the warriors at the front. They was vulnerable. This is where the word comes from, right? This is the root of the word. But through the years, it's been turned on its head, and now it's been, seen as something weak. But actually, this is misleading, right? Because I mean, to try and narrow this down, vulnerability not only connects us. I've never seen anything connect human beings quicker than the act of being present and being vulnerable in that moment and real. Nothing. And so this is, a very core issue that, that really leads to the authenticity and uniqueness of us, right? And this is a very important thing, because even when we're creating brands and we're looking for innovation, or we're going into this pool of stuff where this magical stuff is, we're looking for the authenticity of what it is. We're starting there. And so there's a part of us, and this is where vulnerability is. But there's a real confusion with people. I mean, me, people would know, I had some darkness in my former years. So there's the darkness and the light issue, where maybe I can give another slant to this, which is why I want to give a bit as well. And there's a kind of a conflict here. And I certainly see it, in people where, they think, oh, I'm a good person, so I must be good. So I can't be vulnerable, or I can't be too much, or I can't have a hard edge. But I say, no, that's wrong. If you're a good person, you're a good person. You don't, that doesn't mean that you can't show your vulnerability as a strength, or you don't put up a really strong boundary to your values or virtues or what you believe to be right. And I see some strange conflicts with the most intelligent people with this issue. And we have to unpick it and kind of narrow it, and and get this one down, and it really empowers their processes. But vulnerability is part of this. It's another real central part of this, and I think it's such a wonderful thing, because it just is, and it's that part, authentic part of us, and it should be recognized as so and embraced for the right reasons, not get this bad rap and kind of shied away from, or moved away from, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Brian, for bringing that up, and thank you, Stephen, for sharing. I agree completely, and I think it's about bringing people along your journey, your authentic journey, right? Like that's basically what we're talking about. We're not talking about a manufactured brand that a marketing agency's created and they've written a grid and they put all the info in, and we all know about that, right? But we're talking about just saying, well, actually, sometimes I feel insecure, and being perfectly honest, because then it bonds you, doesn't it, to other people. So, Kim, what do you think about that?
So I think it's hugely important. I think, I believe most of us are vulnerable about something. We have a something we hope nobody finds out, because it's something that makes us feel uncomfortable. And actually, when we can learn to share our vulnerability without losing our credibility, we can have a really big impact. And we have these, you can have conversation, and there's a fascinating book called Crucial Conversations that talks about this, which is there's a moment in our life where a conversation becomes crucial. And by that, what we mean is that there is some emotion in there. And that's because one or both parties is feeling vulnerable. They think they're going to be sold to, or they're going to be made a fool of, or they're going to be asked to do something they want to do. Whatever it is, there's a vulnerability. And actually, if you frame that in that conversation, you can have even the most challenging of conversations, because you take out that emotion. So I I do this all the time with people that I think I'm going to have a potentially uncomfortable conversation with, which is, you know, I'd really rather stick my head in the oven than have this conversation right now. However, I need to, because we need to find a resolution that works for both of us. And I'm 100% committed to finding a solution that works for both of us. So you've shared a little bit honest vulnerability, which is, I really don't want to be doing this. I don't want to be talking to you about it. I'd rather stick my fingers in my ears and go la 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 like my little girl does when you're trying to tell her off. But I know I can't, you know, I have to be the adult in that. But what it does is create a safe space for people so that they go, actually, she's not going to attack me. I'm not going to be the only one vulnerable in this conversation, and therefore actually we can move past that and we can move towards finding a resolution that works for both of us. So I think, Brian, Stephen, Nat, all of you made such great points, which is it's got to come from that authentic place. We can spot when something's not genuine, and when it's not genuine, we don't believe it. So I think it's got to come from that honest space, and it's got to be there to try and move everybody further forward to help us all be better as a result of it.
Very much so. Well, guys, Kim, you guys have been brilliant. I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, and thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. And at some point, we're launching our new Master Mindset podcast in the next, I don't know, probably two weeks, I think, maybe 3, depending on the music and all that sort of stuff, and the voiceover and all that sort of good stuff. So we'd love to interview you guys and put that out there as well. But we're going to share some of this obviously as well. And thanks so much for watching, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.